Hello there, I'm Kafi Khan and welcome back to my Android tutorial. In the previous video, we talked about installing of Android Studio and setting up the SDK. In today's video, we'll be talking about activities and layouts. Well, what is an activity? Anything that's visible on your Android screen is an activity. Or in another word, the building blocks of user interface is an activity. Activity consists of layouts and layouts consist of widgets. Layouts are of two basic types, linear layout and relative layout. Linear layout aligns its child views in a linear fashion, which could either be horizontal or vertical. Whereas relative layout aligns its child views in a position relative to each other. Android supports multiple widgets, for example, text view, edit text, radio button, checkbox, date picker, etc. So, let's dive in. Let's create a new project. Let's call our project Activities and Layouts. You see this package name. So what this package name is, it's a unique identifier for your application on Google Play Store. It comprises of your application name and your company domain. So let's hit the next button. This drop-down defines the minimum SDK on which your application will run. We are gonna select API 15, and why is that? As you can see here, it's written by targeting API 15, our application will run on almost 100% of the devices running Android in the world. So let's hit the next button. Let's select an empty activity. Let's call our first activity as main activity. You can call it anything, but me, I'm just going to proceed with main activity. Let's hit the finish button. The Android is building our project, so let's wait. Well, the project's built and it's ready to go. So let's proceed. As you can see here, this is our project structure. We've got a Java folder and a resource folder, and the values folder will have color.xml, string.xml, and styles.xml. Styles.xml defines the style of your application, the primary color, the secondary color, the primary text color, the secondary text color, all those things. The colors.xml defines the colors. So it's just like you're defining variables, say red, and you assign a hexa code to that variable. And string.xml, here we create our strings, and we'll see that in some time. These two folders, Android test and test, contain files which contain code for automation, integration, and unit testing of our application. We'll get back to that later in some video in future. So today, let's get started with a layout. And here, as you can see, we've got a Java file and an XML file. So for each activity, you've got two files, a Java file and an XML file. Java file contains the functionality part. The XML file contains the user interface part. So let's start with the UI first. As you can see here, our parent layout is Constraint Layout. It was introduced recently in Android SDK 25. We'll get back to that later. So right now, let's get rid of that and design a linear layout. Okay. As you can see in the preview, we've got a text view which has text, hello world. To understand these layouts, linear and relative layout, let's define some widgets and see how these layouts align their child views. So let's create an edit text. With match parent, height, wrap content. And now you must be wondering what's match parent and what's wrap content. So match parent is like whatever is the available space, it allocates, it assigns that to your widget. Whereas wrap content just gives the amount of space which wraps your widget. Let's see that. Let's get rid of this text view right now. Now as you can see, this is the outline of my edit text. So the height is just wrapping my edit text, but the width stretches across the entire screen. So let's change the width to wrap content. Now as you can see here, the width is just wrapping our edit text, and the height is also just wrapping our edit text. Let's change both to match parent and see what happens. Match parent. Match parent. Now as you can see, the outline is around the entire screen. So this means our edit text is in the entire screen. It takes the full height, it takes the full width. So let's change it back to wrap content. Let's give it a hint. And to define strings, I've already told you, we've got a string.xml files. So let's see how we define a string. Let's click on the project, resources, values, and string.xml. As you can see here, we've already got one string variable, application name, that's our app name. Okay, so let's define another string. String name, let's give it, say, hint username. Let's give the value to username. Similarly, let's make it for password. And let's also create a label for a button. So hint password. Let's change the value to password. For the button, let's say label btn login. Let's give it a value login. Now coming back to our XML file, let's close this. Let's provide the hint. So hint username. Now as you can see here, in my edit text, I can see a hint username. Okay, let's define another edit text, which would be for password. Edit text, again with match parent, height wrap content, and let's give it a hint password. And now as you can see, on the screen only username is visible, but no password. And as you can see here, we've got some error, so let's see what that is. Okay, it says no orientation specified, and as I was telling you when I introduced linear layout, that it aligns its child views either orientation, vertical or horizontal. So we have to provide an orientation field. So let's define that attribute, orientation, let's give it vertical. Now as you can see, both our texts are visible, username as well as password, and they are aligned vertically in a linear fashion. Okay, let's also define a button. Say again, match parent and wrap content. Match parent, height wrap content. Let's provide it with a label, text, say label btn login. And now as you can see, we've got ourselves a simple form here with two edit text and one button. Okay, so let's align it in a horizontal fashion now. Let's change the orientation to horizontal. And now again, as you can see, we can only see username and everything else is hidden. Any guesses why? Well, that's because we've given the full width to our edit text username. So the other two widgets, they go out of the screen. it must be somewhere outside here, and that's why it's not visible. So let's change over to wrap content. And now as you can see, we can see password, but we cannot see our button. Again, the same reason, because password has the with match parent. Okay, let's change that also to wrap content. And now as you can see, we can see all three of our widgets, both the edit text and the button. That's all for linear layout. We've seen both the orientations, vertical as well as horizontal. Let's see relative layout now. Okay, let's change this to relative layout. And now as you can see, everything's gone. Only one widget is visible. Why? Okay, let's select here. As you can see, it's showing the highlight for my edit text password over here, and the highlight for edit text username as well over here. Why? Because we haven't defined the relative positions yet, so everything is overlapped. So let's define that. And to define a relative position, we'll need some unique identifiers, right? So let's define the IDs for each widget. Say ed username. And for this, let's say ed password. And for this, let's say btn login. So let's align it in a vertical fashion, everything below each other. So we need our ed password below ed username. So let's say layout below and ed username. So now as you can see, the password is below ed username. Similarly, let's define the login button below ed password. So let's say layout below and ed password. And now as you can see, it's aligned in a linear fashion, vertical, just below each other. Although it's not exactly a linear fashion, we've just defined it that way. And even if I remove the orientation from here, it doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. Why? Because we've aligned everything in a position relative to each other. Okay, that's all for relative layout. Now let's just get used to some widgets. And let's give this a match parent, and let's give this also as match parent. We can customize these edit text, we can change the color, we can increase the font size, we can decrease the font size, we can change the background color. There's so many things we can do with these. So let's try a few. Let's change the text size. Okay, let's define the dimensions. Let's say it's 16 dp. As you can see now, the username text is smaller than the password text. Okay, let's make this say text size 20 dp. And as you can see, the font size increased. And let's give the text size of button say 12 dp. And let's change the background color. Background and color say black. And let's change our text color. Let's make it white. Similarly, you can do n number of customizations. Let's see some more widgets. Let's define a radio button. Radio button is enclosed in a radio group, so let's define a radio group first. Say radio group, match parent, wrap content, and let's define a radio button. Again, match parent, wrap content, text, let's define a string. Say RB, male. Let's define another string for female. Okay, coming back to our user interface. Say RB male. Similarly, let's define it for female. Again, as you can see, it's overlapping, so let's just change apparent layout to linear layout. And let's give the orientation vertical. And let's put this button at the bottom. Looks better now. Similarly, you've got so many other widgets, checkbox, date picker, I've already told you about. So that's all for today, folks. I've got a small homework for you. Go back, experiment with widgets, design forms, design layouts, and if you have any doubts, any queries, feel free to drop a comment. And if you need access to this code, it's already uploaded on my GitHub account, and the URL for that is in the description below. Again, if you need any help, any query, feel free to drop a comment and we'll get through it. Okay? See you in the next video.